make it stupid simple, and it'll sell. A confused mind won't make a decision.
Yeah, and I'd piggyback on that and say you don't want a confused mind giving you money, because it's hard to please somebody who's looking for something completely different and doesn't understand what you're trying to do. That's probably a partnership you don't want.
Welcome into the Get Invested podcast, a podcast about all things real estate and real estate investing, brought to you by Capital Velocity Investments and a part of the Matthias Talks Investing Substack.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of the Get Invested podcast with your hosts, Jordan and Matthias. We are excited today because we're switching it up a little bit, and I'm assuming, Matthias, as we always do, that the listeners will also be excited to know that they won't be listening to just us today. We have a guest, the CEO of HBG Capital out of Nashville, Brandon Cobb. So welcome, Brandon, to the Get Invested podcast. Glad you can join us.
Oh, thanks, guys. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. Looking forward to a good conversation. So, Matthias, I guess we're not going to take up this man's time with the palaver. So let's jump in. Brandon, I was looking over your stuff, and one of the things that jumped out to me, listening to the video that you break it down and then reading your LinkedIn and the website, was that you and Matthias actually have a fairly similar story as far as how you got started on the investing side, and that is you started with an idea and friends and family. So if you just want to kind of give us that'll be your launch point, essentially. Just tell us the background of how you got into doing land development and working with affordable housing.
Yeah, so I'm probably what you call an accidental entrepreneur. I don't have this story of working in corporate for decades and having some kind of dream and quitting my job, finally doing it. No, I actually love what I did. So if you told me 10 years ago, while I was in medical device sales, that we'd be inventing these new neighborhoods, I'd have looked at you like you had 10 heads, because like I was settled. Medical device sales was it. That was my future. That's what I want to do. And unlike a lot of people, I actually liked so young guy wearing scrubs every single day to work, rubbing shoulders with orthopedic surgeons, seeing surgery every single day, training the hospital staff on my product. I was selling something that I believed in. Like I loved what I did, quite frankly. And it took me a long time to break into the industry. You know, the guy that I work for, my boss, he finally gave me my shot. He was the guy that let me break in, and he gave me my first career opportunity in that particular field. And, I saw him as a father figure. He was a mentor, and, I was having one of the best possible days I could possibly have as a sales rep. And I was going to go meet with him Friday afternoon. He calls me and says, "Hey, let's meet over at the Starbucks and grab some coffee." And I sit down with him, and he fires me. And there was several hours of shock, and I'm like, dude, I got the Rookie of the Year Sales Award. What the heck happened? And the only thing that was going through my head at that time was, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? And after the shock kind of finally wore off, I realized that nobody was going to look out for my financial well-being but me. So that was the big takeaway from that moment. And it was a big thing. I've carried it with me since then. And since that day, when I was first starting out, I go, okay, well, I've got an opportunity to do something here. I don't have a job. Let me try to go make some money. So I started a course on how to break into medical sales. That failed. I was really into the motivational stuff, started an online blog on motivation. Guess what? That failed too. I really liked the whole Tony Robbins life coaching thing. Said, let me do something around there. And you guys aren't going to believe this, but not many people want to take life advice from a 26-year-old. So that failed. And then I discovered this vehicle called real estate. And man, I went all in as soon as I could see the vision and the writing on the wall. I sold all my retirement accounts, purchased my first property, started flipping houses, built that up to doing like 30, 40 house flips per year, graduated into new construction, started a capital raising company to help supplement that, wanted to grow and scale the amount of homes that we were building. And in order to do that, we had to stop building these little infill lots, these little vacant lots, and start doing big parcels of land and putting roads and stuff in. Well, we were doing a lot of development when we got a knock on the door from one of these big national home builders. You can recognize them. They got like stocks that are being traded on the New York Stock Exchange. And they said, "We want to buy your land. We really like it. We want to build the houses." And we said, "Get lost. It's not for sale. We don't want to sell it to you." And then they brought us a contract. And we looked at it. My partner looked at me. I looked at him. We looked at the contract, looked back at us, and we said, "Yeah, you can 100% have it. We will sell it to you. And do you want the one across the street? Like we'll develop and sell that one for you too." So fast forward today, we do all three phases of construction or development, which is, the entitlement. That's phase one, getting it approved for development. We do phase two, the land development, so the grading, the roads, utilities, all that fun stuff. And we also do phase three, the new construction, building the homes. But right now, over the past few years, we've really seen a huge opportunity to just get land approved and sell it to Lennar, D.R. Horton, these big national home builders who are basically Wall Street and have an unlimited amount of money and can buy an unlimited amount of land from us.
Nice. I have a little bit of experience. I'm invested with some partners up in Colorado doing very similar kind of the horizontal development where you're, putting the utilities, paving the road, and getting approval to do all that first. But I'm curious. So when you do your kind of from beginning to end process there, are you working with like a set group of normal public servants that you're working with? Like, is it one location that you develop relationships with these people over time, or is it kind of a plug and play? You can take that anywhere.
Most of what we do is in the Nashville, Tennessee area. We've got other parts of Middle Tennessee that we're part of, some other deals that we're working on like nationwide. So it works anywhere, right? You got to have the right partners, of course, if it's in one of the other areas, so it's a little bit more difficult to like scale like a land development if you're actually going to do the construction. Much easier to scale the land entitlement portion because all you're doing there is getting the piece of land approved and through a pre-contract that you already have it pre-sold before we start taking it through that approval process. That's a little bit easier to scale.
So where in that saga that you just laid out for us, did you start getting friends and family involved in this? Because that is part of this story as well, is that's how this all got started with, well, I guess individual, and then to start scaling. Right. You start talking to friends and family about it. So where in that process did you start hitting up friends and relatives? Because I'm always intrigued by that process when you start breaking the ice on that, because I mean, that's the age old hilarious thing that'll be in movies or whatever. Like, oh, I got this great investment. You should go in on me. I mean, you're fighting some
Everyone
headwinds.
has that uncle that says that.
Yeah, everybody's got that uncle with a great tip, right? So you're fighting some headwinds. I'm always interested in how someone, made that work.
When we first started raising money, everything slowly evolved. When I was flipping houses, I started with hard money. So those are professional lenders that charge an outrageous interest rate and need a large payment, and they want your firstborn son. And, you don't know any better when you're young and in the industry, you're just like, the money, I need the money. And then as we were growing that house flipping business, we realized, oh my gosh, the amount of overhead, over half of our overhead was interest payments. And I was like, I don't know many businesses where half the overhead is interest payments. Like, something's got to be a little bit broken here. And we became very safe and confident with what we were doing, right? We're like, oh, here's why these hard money lenders are lending and give us, because it's a pretty safe asset, right? It's single family residential housing, and you're going in and you're buying assets at a significant discount and force appreciating their value through rehabbing them. So we felt very confident what we were doing after a while, and we had a need to reduce those interest payments. And so it became very easy for me to go to my network. I first started with my network, not, friends and family. It was pretty easy because I was going to all the local rent events and RIA events. I was going to all the real estate meetups, and I was just asking people, hey, do you want to partner on some deals? I'm looking for capital partners. It was really that easy. And I explained to them like, hey, I can't pay you monthly interest payments, but we can let it accrue and I'll pay you out at the closing, right? And you get healthy double-digit returns. And a lot of people were like, well, that's a lot more money than what I'm earning in my bank account. And of course, the sexy thing I had going for me was everybody had seen HGTV. Real estate was a hot thing. The market was smoking hot. You couldn't go anywhere and talk to somebody without talking about real estate, So there were some things that were working in my favor. That's how I started. And so I went from like $20,000, $30,000 a month in hard money interest payments to zero. It all accrued and paid out on the back end. And I went from paying, 15, 16% to 10%. And so we were very profitable with that. So that was kind of step one right there. And then step two happened when I had $4 or $5 million out, and it was like playing Tetris with people's money. I was like, dude, I didn't want to have like multiple investors in one deal. Like if I needed 250 grand, I wanted to find one investor with 250 grand. But you kind of come across a scenario where you're like, well, one guy's got 200 and another's got 50, and I would need to do like a first and second position. And, I didn't really like that. I didn't want, it starts getting a little bit squirrely, after you have multiple investors in a deal. I then discovered this vehicle called a syndication. And guys, when I learned what a syndication was, that was a game changer. Because what I did is I went to the investors and I said, hey, good news, guys. We're going to do more of the same deals. I'm going to be able to keep your money busy. And instead of paying 10%, I'm going to pay you 18%. I'm going to make you an equity partner in the deal. So I took that $4 million, I converted it into equity from debt, paid them 18% on the equity instead of the 10% debt. Use that $4 million to go and get $20 million from bank loans and stuff like that. And so that's when things like really took off from there.
Sure. Yeah. I remember, speaking of syndication, I kind of went the other route. I started single families. I knew nothing about real estate, but a mentor said, me and my wife needed to buy this particular house. So we bought that house and it was like, cool. Okay. So I can buy another house. So we bought 2 more houses the next year. Like I was convinced of real estate, but I was like, I don't know how to scale this. And I was full-time active duty and deploying all the time for the Air Force. And so I was like, okay, I don't know if I could buy like 100 houses like this. I don't know if I can keep doing this. And my wife probably would have kicked me out long before. But so basically I was like, all right, well, how do people do this? And I started, doing podcasts and just researching everything. And it was like, oh, syndications. People can buy apartments with partners and capital partners. And I was like, oh, we need to do that. We should have done that. We should have started like that. That's the way to go. But I mean, you can never like go back and say start with syndications, because a lot of what brings you or what attracts you to investors with syndications is that your track record is the fact that it. You're not just throwing spaghetti on the wall and seeing what sticks. Like you've actually done it before. So I get that. But yeah, syndication was a real game changer. And then I was like, oh well, now we can go buy all these people I've been blabbing about real estate to for a long time can actually participate with me without having to learn everything and the ins and outs and stay up all night and all those things that you do when you're starting out. And you can really scale much quicker than you ever can on your own. Like, you're capped at, I don't know, what is it, 10 Fannie Freddie loans if you're gonna go that route in terms of like just a single family house. And I never even made it anywhere close to that cap. I was already capped out on one, what I had time for, and 2, capital. So it was a no brainer for us.
Yeah, it's powerful for both parties. Investors, these types of investments were usually reserved for the ultra rich or family offices, right? Because, how do you get, millions and millions of dollars pulled together? Well, you have to have it. And so all these investments were limited to those. And I think it was like 2010, 11, 12, somewhere. I can't remember what the law was or the act that was passed that, allowed, the 506B or C to come in and, regular investors to be able to access these types of opportunities. So yeah, 100%. It's a game changer, man. Private equity, I've got Tony Robbins' book, on my shelf back here, his private equity book. Like, it's like 15, 16% on average per year, in private equity investments. And, it deserves a spot in everybody's portfolio.
I completely agree. That's one of our biggest, I'm a strictly 506B guy because we can bring on investors who just had no idea they had access to this kind of investment and these kind of private equity returns, just exactly like you said. That's my passion in life now. We've as a family, we built enough that, we're good to go, but so I don't need to do anything, but this is my passion now is that I want to keep, I love running real estate and buying apartments. And the most rewarding part is being able to connect people who that's for rich people. That's for millionaires. There's no way I could ever get a piece of that. And my goal is to create millionaires. You know what I mean? Like pass them off to go be somebody who only does accredited investors. That's cool. I created a couple of accredited investors. Go on and do what you want to do now. I love the idea of democratizing as low as we possibly can. Obviously not taking grandma's last pennies before she, goes to the poorhouse. It needs to be responsible, but also telling people that you actually have more opportunities than you think to kind of maximize returns.
Yeah, I was showing Matthias you guys' the website's frequently asked questions, and it was almost like it was like 70% identical as far as like the types of questions you get.
What our website,
because what is the minimum? Like, do you do it unaccredited or not accredited? Like the whole thing because of that. We take it as a mission. I don't know what you guys do, but we have, it's part of our corporate mission to incorporate people who have never done this before, or they're just getting started. So it's definitely something that we find a lot of value in. On that note, how many parcels was your first kind of land deal that really was proof of concept? How many houses could be built on it?
The first one we did, I think, was 36 parcels.
Okay.
So 36, and like the next one we did was 40, but we made a big mistake. Like I get probably one of these a month where a new developer sends it to me because, word around town is we buy this stuff and do this. And I saw that he had it approved for 11-foot wide townhome products. And I was like, who has an 11-foot wide townhome product? And so he made the mistake a lot of developers make is, number one, just shoving as much density as humanly possible on it, thinking, I just want to maximize value. And number two, not designing it with the end product in mind. We actually made that mistake where we bought this thing thinking, okay, we'll develop it. And then we realized that like the lots were 20 feet wide. No one had a, 15-foot product it was wide, and we're like, crap, so we had to go back, get it revised to, I think like 30 feet wide. And so we lost, I don't know, 8 lots or something like that. Luckily it's still penciled, but so we've definitely made a lot of the mistakes along the way as well.
11-foot wide. That's crazy.
Yeah. And I see a lot of those types of products out there where someone's getting their feet wet doing this, and they got dollar signs in their eyes, and they just want as much money as possible, and they end up taking it through the whole process and spending the money, and then finding out nobody wants to buy it because nobody has a product that will fit what it was approved for. So we work with the builders initially, like during our due diligence period. Like we get the land under contract, we get a concept plan done, we take that concept to the city. City verbally says, yes, we're excited about it. We take it to our builders. And then if the builders are like, yeah, we want this, and here's a contract for a lot more money than what we got in a contract with, then we move forward. That's kind of like a quick and easy way of like how we mitigate the risk and sort of how we approach each deal before spending a whole ton of money on it.
Okay, so you basically know that you already have an end exit before you even close the initial purchase contract. And then obviously the entitlement process can take, I don't know, a year or 2 years even, especially if you're doing the horizontal utilities and all that too. Okay. Yeah. That's a great way to mitigate that. I'm sure there's, things that have to be met in order for the secondary contract to be fulfilled and maintained. But that sounds like a great way to enter, knowing your exit is in great shape.
Yeah. Well, as you know, it's been a tough market the past few years, right? Speculation doesn't work the same way that it used to. Pre-2022, everything we wanted to do was spec, because by the time whatever we were building, houses or lots or whatever was done, it was worth a lot more money. Not in this day and age. We want to make sure we've got multiple exit strategies lined up, hence the entitlement, then the development, and then, the home. So we've got, 3 different exits that we can utilize if we need. And then just risk mitigation, right? Market risk, time risk, get rid of that, have it pre-sold to a builder locked up. On our entitlement stuff, the buyer's deposit has to cover the entitlement costs. So, if they walk for whatever reason, we get reimbursed, because that obviously can happen, the last minute. So there's some things you got to do, but pre-sold contracts is a great way to mitigate risk. It makes it a lot easier to raise money for your investors too, right? Hey, look, Lennar's going to buy this. You ever heard of them?
Yeah. You ever heard of Horton? Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
That is a nice slide on the pitch deck, I would imagine. The thumbs up from a huge housing.
It makes it easy. All cash, it's simple, right? Like, people want to make investments in things that they understand. You guys know this. The more simple that you can make it, one of the things that we teach in our community for those developers that are raising capital is, if you can't make it where a third grader can understand it, it's too complicated. Make it stupid simple, and it'll sell. A confused mind won't make a decision.
Yeah. And I'd piggyback on that and say you don't want a confused mind giving you money, because that's who knows what's in their head, and then it's hard to please somebody who's looking for something completely different and doesn't understand what you're trying to do. So that's probably a partnership you don't want. If they can't figure it out, then it's just not for them.
Yeah. And that's one thing we teach too is, hey, don't invest in anything that you don't understand. Buffett's famous for missing the whole tech.com boom. I tell people the same thing. Like, if at the end of the day, you go through what we present and it doesn't make sense, and I can't articulate clearly like what has to happen for you to break even or lose money, and you need to be comfortable with that. If you can't comprehend that, then, invest in something else. Only invest in stuff that you understand.
Sure. I'm a big Warren Buffett guy, so I love it.
Yeah. That just made me think of, I guess it's still a thing, but when crypto really, like, everyone started knowing about it, it became a whole thing to like try to get people who were big into it to actually explain what the blockchain was. And that just led to some serious hilarity because they actually had no idea.
I'm a big blockchain fan. I think that's the future rails of our financial economy. But that is a big hurdle, as nobody knows what the blockchain is or can describe it. It's very difficult. But, at the same time, you have things like the internet. I can't explain how the internet works, quite frankly. Like, I use it, but I like the rails and stuff and how that works. Like, I really
heard there's
don't
a truck.
understand it. What?
Oh, never mind. It's an old joke that there was a truck. There was a big truck that drove around. Let's not get off into that, but that's why there's so much growth in the energy and tech infrastructure world, because they're just building more and more of these massive server farms for that internet to run, for you to never delete a picture off your phone ever. But let's not get sidetracked. So when we are looking for, a property to purchase, some kind of value add, apartment complex or townhome community or whatever, we have a kind of range of units we're looking for that we specialize in. Do you guys have that kind of specialty where I know you're making deals with contractors at the end or before you even go, but are there certain sizes that you're looking for that you feel like is your wheelhouse?
Yeah. So, we work with national home builders, right? But this whole entitlement development game, it works with any end buyer. I don't care if you're doing multifamily or self-storage or whatever it is, right? It's the same approval process with the city, and you want to lock your end buyer up, right? You want to make sure you got it. So they typically want at least 50 units minimum, because they have to justify being able to put a team on there. Now, They might have some wiggle room if they already have some existing projects over there. If it's a completely green area, they might want 100, 200 units, 3, 4, 5 years worth of product to be able to go there. So it's different. It's a fluid situation, but most of the time for us, we're focused on 50 units or more. And, we want to net 7 figures on the end of the deal. If we're not going to net 7 figures on the entitlement portion, like, we don't want to do that deal. So those are some of the prerequisites that we have to have.
Okay. Well, you were saying make it as simple as possible for everyone to understand. So I was going to ask you, you had mentioned in one of the videos I watched that it's typically a 2-year process. If I were wanting to invest, and perhaps someone who's listening will want to, what is that kind of typical time arc, right? Can you break it up into the stages of what happens in that 2 years for someone to understand if they were going to throw their money in?
Yeah, so there's two phases in like the land development portion. So we're not talking about building houses. Forget that for a second. That's phase 3. Yeah. That's the last step. The first phase is entitlement. So I got to take a piece of farmland and I got to get the city to approve me building a new community on it. To do that, I have to have the civil drawings approved by the city. So what the heck are civil drawings? Much like a builder can't build a house without the architectural plans, a developer can't develop land without the civil plans. The civil plans show what the slope of the road is, how deep the sewer goes, where does the water go, where are the fire hydrants placed, that kind of stuff. So typically, we get to what's called a preliminary plat approval. So our company does this. Once you have that preliminary plat approval, the city's basically said, hey, we want this. It is approved, contingent on the civil drawings being finished. So you can't go and do construction, but they've approved the community. They've accepted it. That's when we take it to investors and we go, hey guys, we have an approved community. We need to get the civil drawings approved, and we raise capital for those civil drawings. Those are typically smaller deals. We're only raising maybe 100, 200, 300, at most 400,000, 500,000 for deals like that, because you can do a lot of units with just a little bit of money. When we purchase that land, if we were to purchase it, we're using 100% investor equity. So no loans, no debt on the land. If we go and we develop the property, now we're introducing some type of debt financing. And again, when you go and have a contract from a publicly traded company that's going to buy it and a multi-million-dollar deposit, pretty easy to get financing for stuff like that. So that's when we introduce debt at that portion. Typically, entitlement takes 15 months, and then it takes another 10-12 months to develop and sell the land. So that would be an example of like a 2-year cycle and what's involved in each one of those.
I have a relationship with a guy local here. He does a kind of one-off. He's done some luxury homes. He's doing some commercial spaces now. But basically he's been doing this for 30, 35 years in the area. So he knows everybody in the city, to push those things through. And he gets I would not be confident in another person's ability to be able to do what he does, because he knows these people, has known him for forever, is a name. People know he'll follow through on XYZ when he's doing any one of these projects. I'm just curious how much the relationship game is, how integral it is into the success of any of these ventures that you would go on, because I could just see somebody walking into a permitting office and making a jerk of themselves and basically just throwing a wrench in the entire process, because government workers, almost all of them are interested in helping you get what you need. But if you set somebody off in a place like that, I can see it going very, very south. I'm curious how you look at those relationships.
Yeah, so relationships are important, and there's a couple things you can do. You don't have to grow up with them and be buddy, right? But one of the things that we teach in our mastermind community for people who are just starting out doing this is, first, identify the right areas, right? So that's easy. Go pull up a map of where Lennar is building. Go type in Lennar, Nashville, Tennessee, D.R. Horton, Nashville, Tennessee. They have a map of all their communities. Okay, all right. So just go to those areas. They've told you where they want to be. Now, the next thing is we tell people, go sit down with the liaison to developers. This could be the planning director if it's in a little bit more of a local rural area. If you're in like a big metropolis, they assign council members for each district. But whoever it is, go meet with them. Pull up a chair on the same side of the table and say, hey, my name's Brandon. I'm a new developer in town. It's really nice to meet you. I just want, a few minutes of your time. Wanted to understand some of the things that developers in your community are doing to create win-wins for you guys. Hey, what do people call and complain to you the most about? If you can solve that problem, you've got their ear. Hey, what are some things that you want to see? What's the vision for the community? And it could be green space, more dog parks, more, handicap ramps, whatever it is. But if you go and act like you want to understand what the needs are, genuinely, now you become a tool, because developers in the city, they work together. The city has a vision for what they want the city and community to look like. Developers make that happen. So the city and these developers have a symbiotic relationship. For example, Wilson County right here. If you are a new developer and you don't do what I just told you to do, you'll probably find a piece of land. You'll want to shove as much density as possible on it. So what is that? It looks like a townhome product. You'll spend $5,000, $6,000 on a concept plan. You'll do a submittal. Maybe there's an impact fee you got to pay for the submittal. You'll take all this time and effort to learn that they're going to shoot it down. Why? Because Wilson County does not want townhomes. They're sick and tired of them. They want single family detached. So if I'd known that ahead of time, I could have designed my concept plan and submittal around what they wanted. And if you do that, your chances of getting the approval go up significantly. So pull up a chair on the same side of the table, go visit your council person or your local planning director and understand what the needs of the community are and try to design your development to meet the needs of that.
Yeah. Win-wins is how you stay in this business past like a year or two, because if you do a couple of win-loses where you win and everybody loses or the other guy loses, you're pretty much done after that. But if you get good at creating win-wins for all the stakeholders. That's how you see the big outfits and the real scaling actually happens, is that, because everybody wants a piece because they know they're going to win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you hit it on the head.
Well, and on that note, there is a lot going on and being talked about in the idea of the housing crisis, the affordable housing crisis. And I know that was something that a number of things that I saw in your stuff was the focus. So how have things evolved as that becomes more and more an acute focus and talking point?
Well, when we were deciding where we really wanted to focus for the next 4 or 5 years, when it comes to investing money, as you guys know, the boat you're in is a lot more important than how hard you row, right? Like, I don't care what happened in COVID. If you're in the toilet paper industry, for whatever industry, like, business was good, right? That stuff was flying off the shelves for whatever reason, right? Told us a lot of funny stuff about human psychology. So you want to go where capital is going to go. And right now, I don't think that there is a greater supply and demand imbalance than affordable housing. When I say affordable housing, I don't mean Section 8 or government housing. I'm talking about that first-time homebuyer housing product, right? That $2,000, $2,400 per month mortgage. You have 33% of the home buying population, millennials like me, that are having kids and settling down, and less than 10% of homes being built are entry-level housing. I don't need to be a genius to see where the supply and demand imbalance is there. So, for the foreseeable future, we're short those types of products. And if you can deliver those types of products to the market, it's going to sell. And that's what a lot of our national buyers want. Like, they want that first time home buyer housing product. And so that's what we do. We set out to focus on the areas that we can deliver that type of product.
Okay, well, first of all, let's just be clear. We're also millennials. So, it's not just you. Okay. Don't be trying to push us up a generation, Brandon. But that is a little bit interesting to hear, because I know that Matthias and I have talked about it. There have been at times economic headwinds against entry level homes, because a lot of times the margins are so thin that they want to take it a little bit, in order to develop all the plots and substantiate all their commitment. They are going to go a little bit bigger than that. So it's interesting to hear that is something you're finding is growing in the repertoire of the national home builders.
Yeah, I'm encouraged to hear it, because I don't hear that a lot. I mean, I know, again, I don't do much in the development space, so I just go off what I hear and interact with a few people here and there. But from what I've heard, it's really hard to build affordable housing. You have to do it at scale in order to be able to provide the product, the entry level product that, like, we're talking about. And on that note, Jordan recently came up with an idea. We do affordable housing on the apartment side. We don't do luxury apartments in the downtown lofts and stuff. We focus on blue collar workforce housing, the need that will never go away. That's kind of our bread and butter. But Jordan just recently came up with the idea. We actually lose tenants every now and then. It's not as common as honestly you would hope, but we lose tenants that are buying their first house. And Jordan came up with the idea that we always hate to see tenants go. The best tenant is the one that you already have, right? You want to keep your tenants. But that's the best reason I can think of for anybody to leave our housing. And we actually are instilling a policy where we're giving a gift basket to new first time home buyers that are moving out of our apartments to kind of a housewarming gift. It's just I'm never going to be upset about losing a tenant to buy in their first house. That's the American dream, right? That's what we're all here to help people achieve. So I'm glad to hear that they're adding more supply for that, because I live in Destin, Florida, and there's no such thing as affordable housing in Destin, Florida, because anywhere there's space, they're building either a condo that's going to be 18 stories high, or they're building a $2.5 million waterfront home. We're an island here, so we're a bit of an anomaly, but like, there's no such thing as affordable housing going up anywhere near here. So, I hear the laments of people that are like, man, I'm never going to be able to own if I live here, because it's just, as soon as I make more money, the housing just got that much more expensive. But I love hearing that there are people working to bring more of these entry starter homes to people. Your first home doesn't have to be your forever home.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? Yeah, because when things change, when you have inflation or rates go up, that's the first buyer that gets affected. And a good tool with that is density. That's why you have these 5,000-6,000 square foot lots. You can get more units out of the same piece of land. The builder's cost basis comes down, and so they can provide that product. So, again, working with the city, they're a big tool in being able to make that a reality.
Sure.
Yeah, living in Charlotte, you were talking about, I think you said Wilson County, doesn't want any townhomes. They want standalone, single family. Well, there's a lot of places in Charlotte, some right around the corner, where there's not really much difference between that single family home and a townhome community. Like you can, you
Reach into the
I have
neighbor's
pretty
window.
broad shoulders. I'm not sure I could walk between the two houses. It's that close. There's townhomes who have more grass and yard than some of these single family homes, but and that's not an exaggeration for sure. So it's interesting that they would completely just reject townhomes when, like you said, the key is density.
We've got some similar stuff, the shotgun style homes where the city went in certain areas and changed the zoning. So the city, again, that's kind of the tool and lever that they have. They can change entire zip code zoning of certain areas, and all of a sudden in the whole downtown core of Nashville, you could tear down a house and build two in its place. And holy cow, like it just ignited a firestorm of investment because everyone's like, holy, I can build two houses on this lot now, or 4 or 5 or 6.
Right.
And it was like these tall and skinnies, that 16 foot wide single family home, baby, like, and they're selling. So as long as they're selling, then you can build them.
Oh yeah, I was walking around with my sister in Greenville, and I mean, we're talking in a really nice area that she likes to go while she waits for her daughter to do ballet, and very much that. Maybe not 16 feet, maybe a little bit bigger than that, but we're talking $1 million homes that were just right, one after another. And yeah, I mean, I've lived in a 3-story townhome, same thing. It wasn't 11 feet wide. It was a little bit more than that. I can't get that out of my head. I'm like, oh my God, I couldn't do a somersault, but
You don't do a lot of somersaults anyway.
Well,
that's an older millennial.
Exactly. That's true.
It's dangerous.
Yeah,
break a hip.
Yeah. I mean, it's encouraging that the trend is going that way for sure. Unfortunately in Charlotte, they're building those, but it's like 30 minutes outside. It's too far away from my wife. Let's put it that way. She was like, nope, none of these places. All right. Well, we really appreciate you coming on. I did want to just circle back. Actually, before I circle back to my final question, I just want to ask this for my own curiosity. Why medical devices? Why was that something that you were so into? This is just so interesting to me. Like, why did you love medical devices?
I wanted to make a lot of money.
Oh, okay.
That's
the way to do it.
I wanted to make a lot of money, and it was kind of sexy being in healthcare in the operating room. There was something about wearing scrubs every single day that kind of attracted it to me. My uncle, he in college, I got introduced to sales. I did door-to-door sales, and that's kind of how I was able to pay for like my room and board and housing and food for an entire year. I'd go work a summer selling ADT home protection systems door-to-door, like knock, knock.
Nice.
Wrote a check for, I'd come back for the semester, write a check for the entire year's rent. So I learned, I was like, okay, I like this sales thing. And then my uncle, he was a rep for Medtronic. So I was kind of familiar with what he was doing. And I just, I had this thing. I was like, man, I want to make a lot of money. I like sales. And, just had my heart set on that particular industry.
Okay. I was just a little curious. By the way, Matthias, he was writing checks to the University of Tennessee at Knoxville. So I'm going to give my condolences for that game against the Dogs earlier this year. Sorry we had to come back and break your heart.
Georgia's built an empire, man. Kirby Smart, he's like the new Nick Saban.
Yeah,
well,
he is.
We hope. We'll see. I don't think there's going to be anybody that's going to be like that with the landscape as it is now. I mean, it's been spread out so much. But the last thing I want to ask you about, because I'm actually in the process right now of essentially writing we're calling it a course. And I saw that you had some course stuff on there, and you mentioned Mastermind, and I saw you that had ebooks, because that's kind of what we're in the process of writing right now. So talk to us about the Mastermind course, how that got started, but also just in general, this education piece, because that's really important to us as well. So just how that grew and what your goals were, and where you're at now with that.
Over the years, we had so many people reaching out to us asking, hey, can you teach us how you scaled your new construction company and did all these new builds? Or, hey, I'm flipping land and I want to get into the land entitlement. How are you doing these developments? Can you coach me to do that? And we said, no. And last year, we had just so much interest over the years. We're like, okay, let's do this. Let's put together something and let's see how it goes. And it's been wildly successful. So, if people want to learn more, they can go to learnlanddevelopment.com. We got a free course that gets people started in doing what we do. So there's a little button below it. Click the Land Development 101. And that course it covers, how to find and target the land, raising money, interviews with civil engineers, just everything to get your feet wet. And then if you want to learn more about the Mastermind and coaching program, you can watch the video on that website and book a call. But we did it because when we were getting into this space, we wanted to be a part of a mastermind. We wanted a coach to coach us how to do it, and we couldn't find that. And I've made lots of mistakes, expensive mistakes, and we didn't want to see that happen to other people. So we felt like it was a disservice to turn people down and not do this. I've got land that I still own, 5 years because of the mistakes that I made, doing dumb stuff. Like, don't buy the land until you get all the approvals. Like, I wish someone had taught me that, So we started it because we didn't have a community or a coaching program to lean on. We had to figure it out ourselves. So it's not something that's readily taught and out there. And, we wanted to be the go-to source for it. So that's what we did. We put together, the free stuff for people that just want to get their feet wet and, see how they like it and see if this is something that's a fit for them. And then for those that like the idea of getting their hand held through their first deal or their first capital raise, setting up the systems and processes, and they want access to someone who's done it over and over again so they can avoid the mistakes, usually they end up joining the program. So again, you can go to learnlanddevelopment.com and learn more about that if you want.
All right. Very cool. But
yeah, love it.
Matthias, you out here just like telling people things for free.
Well, I'm doing the same thing. I'm like, people come up to me all the time and they want to do what I do. And I'm like, guys, first of all, I don't think you do because you don't know what I do. And there's a lot, just like you said, there's a lot of mistakes. But I think, the whole goal is that I think all of us do better when more people are involved and are achieving success that they didn't think they could do. And I think I think there's a lot of, like, especially wealth building, right? Like I talk about wealth building all the time. And I think that's very doable to a lot more people that, like we talked about earlier, that even think it's possible. And something that goes along with bringing on an investor for their first investment is there's a lot of education involved in that. Your wealthy family offices, you don't have to explain anything to them. They know what's going on. But the first time investor, they have a lot of questions, and some of them you've never heard before. And you're like, wow, I don't know. I don't even know where you came up with that. You know what I mean? So there's an education involved. And so that's part of the process as far as I'm concerned, and getting people, connecting people with this type of opportunities, that you're going to have to teach them what it is and how to do it first. So we're big on the education, like Jordan said, that's why we're writing the basically we've done an investor's guide, and now we're working on a little bit more in-depth course, kind of like, hey, what exactly are you doing all the time?
Yeah. Essentially apartment invest or syndication 101, essentially. So people can know coming in.
Yeah, the sky's the limit with stuff like that. I've met guys that have created little mastermind programs for investors and getting them together. And then you have people come and speak on, self-directed IRAs or, just different little niche strategies. And they've had a ton of success with it. I've thought about doing it myself. But yeah, the sky's the limit. When you can create community, that's what a lot of people are really looking for, because a lot of these investors don't have other people they can talk to about this kind of stuff.
Agreed.
Yeah, 100%. Besides, what they see is, you doing this cool podcast. And they're like, I want to do what you do. That's obviously the big draw.
I want to sit in that office behind the Air Force sign you stole off the wall of the squadron and talk about real estate with other people. Yeah,
exactly. The dream.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Brandon, we really appreciate your time. Really appreciate you coming on. And as always, guys, we really appreciate you listening. If you have any comments, questions, thoughts, how you reach out. You can comment on Substack, YouTube, Spotify, DM us, hit up the little chat bot on the website, all the ways. We're here to talk and to communicate and build community. And we appreciate Brandon coming on and helping us with that. And we hope you guys will continue to help us with it as well. Until next time, we really appreciate you being here with us. And we hope you come back for another edition of the Get Invested podcast.
See ya.